Good morning, everyone, here at the Jet Propulsion Lab and at the Applied Physics Lab in Laurel, Maryland, to the folks at Think 360 for Arts and Learning in Denver, and to the Johnson Space Center in Houston. I'm Sherry Asplund, and I manage education and communication for NASA's Planetary Missions Program Office. Welcome to our 6th annual spring workshop. Many of you have attended before. We're thrilled to see you again. Welcome. Thank you for your enthusiasm and your interest. For those who are new, welcome, and we hope that you'll be really excited. And we hope that those of you who are educators, that your students will be as excited as you are. And we hope to see them working here at NASA in another 10 years. NASA's planetary science, it's driven by 3 really big questions. How did our solar system form and evolve? Is there life beyond Earth? And what are the hazards to life here on Earth? The Discovery New Frontiers and Solar System Exploration programs are overseen by the Planetary Missions Program Office that I work for. These are lower-cost planetary science missions that are searching for answers. They're challenging long-held theories and revolutionizing our understanding with amazing new images, data, and samples. All the missions are proposed by a principal investigator working with a large, diverse team. The scientists ask questions on a quest for new knowledge, while the engineers seek innovations and the best ways to find the answers. The picture is the Europa first project team meeting held last August. You're going to hear more about Europa for the very first time later today. So our missions are exploring planets, moons, asteroids, and comets, and following NASA's exploration strategy of sending flybys, and then orbiters, and then finally landers. And we've had NASA's first Mars rover was the Pathfinder rover back in 1997. We had the Deep Impact mission, which is an impactor that slammed into a comet, and then Genesis and Stardust were NASA's first sample return since the Apollo days. So creative mission design, that's something we're going to be talking about today. We're looking at it from an engineering perspective. You're going to be hearing about some incredible space adventures a little later. Many of you are familiar with our missions, but have you ever really thought about the genius that it takes to design some of our NASA missions? Hang on a second. So how would you go about designing your dream mission? How would you want to grab samples from the surface of an asteroid and bring them back to Earth? Don't forget, you have to think about cost and mass and schedule. New Horizons was bold, daring, and fearless, sending a spacecraft the size of a piano 3 billion miles from Earth to reach tiny Pluto. The images we've seen so far have boggled minds. They're loaded with unexpected surprises. As you explore simple machines today, think about the science questions that drive the missions you're going to hear about. Consider the instruments on the spacecraft. How and why are they chosen? So I included this left brain, right brain, because popular culture would have you believe that logical, analytical people are left brain dominant, while creative and artistic types are right brain dominant. However, science never really supported that notion, and now scientists at the University of Utah have debunked that myth with an analysis of more than 1,000 brains. They found it is the connections among all brain regions that enable humans to engage in both creative and analytical thinking. I learned about this research from a student science fair project at the San Diego Science Festival a few weeks ago, and I thought it was fascinating. So don't limit yourself. Those of you who think you're one or the other, you're not. You're really both. Our wonderful artistic partners are creatively methodical at the same time that they're methodically creative. So it's a limitation that's false. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of our current missions, and then you'll be hearing more about them from some of the team members. Messenger, you may recall, spent a full year in orbit around the planet Mercury beginning in March of 2011. It was intended to be a 1-year mission, but it was extended until it ran out of fuel and impacted into the surface. These were the first and last images that it took. In March of 2011, it was the first spacecraft ever to orbit Mercury, and in April of last year, it was the first ever to impact into Mercury. So I just chose a few pictures that I thought were really nice. This one is a large tectonic feature that was formed as a response to interior planetary cooling, and it is resulting in the overall shrinking of the planet, which is interesting. These are shadows at the south pole of Mercury. They're permanently shadowed craters, and there's evidence showing that they contain large amounts of water ice. Some of the key findings and achievements of this mission: Messenger set a record for planetary flybys and spent more than 4 years in orbit. It determined Mercury's surface composition, revealed its geologic history, discovered its internal magnetic field, taught us about Mercury's unusual internal structure, discovered novel aspects of its active magnetosphere, and verified that polar deposits are dominantly made of water ice. Messenger surpassed all expectations with discoveries that changed our view of the entire inner solar system. So I love this picture. It's the Messenger spacecraft made up of the faces of the many, many, many team members who participated in it. Hundreds and hundreds of scientists and engineers and support staff. It takes a village, indeed, to create one of our space missions. So the Dawn mission is all about comparing asteroids. It spent a full year in orbit around Vesta and has now been circling Ceres for a little over a year. Dawn is the first mission to orbit and explore any 2 extraterrestrial destinations, and that is thanks to its ion propulsion engine. These are the science objectives of the Dawn mission, which basically is to acquire images, take a lot of maps, get mineralogical and elemental information, measure gravity, and search for moons. This is Vesta, which scientists had theorized for years had had some huge impacts, knocking big hunks out of it, and now we have an image that shows us what it looks like with all those scars left from the impacts. This is the largest mountain on Vesta. It rivals the largest mountain on the surface of Mars as one of the largest in the solar system. I love this global feature of showing Vesta in these beautiful colors, which indicate hydrogen hotspots. So once Dawn got into orbit around Ceres, one of the first things people noticed were those 2 bright dots, and that set off a whole series of speculation. Contests even sprung up. Someone suggested they were alien solar concentrators. So we got in closer and closer, and finally you can see that close-up mosaic on the left from 240 miles above the surface. So they're saying the bright spots are, still not sure. Could be water ice, could be iron-depleted clay materials, likely salt deposits, but the team is still very much in the process of analyzing and determining and arguing and not necessarily agreeing with each other, and they're doing exactly what the science process is all about. This is a picture of that same crater where the bright spots are. I just thought it was a very cool picture, showing some really deep cratering there. This is a mountain on Ceres that scientists were surprised to see. On the steepest side, it's 3 miles high, 12 miles in diameter, higher than Washington's Mount Rainier and California's Mount Whitney. It has a lot of bright material on the slopes. Researchers are exploring the processes that could have led to this formation. And then here's a nice big crater on Ceres. It's a young crater, 16 miles across, again with bright material on its rims and walls, which could be salt. Researchers are looking more now into determine if this bright material is the same as that on Occator crater. So Pluto, we've talked and talked and talked about it, and we flew by last July. And let me just remind you that that picture at the bottom right was the best image we had of Pluto before New Horizons. That was taken from the Hubble Space Telescope. So these were the science questions that the mission was attempting to answer. These are the instruments that got that got the information back for us, the cameras, the UV, the student dust counter, the radio science experiment. And this was one of the first and most exciting images that came back. The heart shape really intrigued people. So what have they found inside Pluto? They found it's about 1/3 ice and 2/3 rock, with a very thick layer of ice on the outside, much thicker than our Antarctic ice layer. Scientists report they're not seeing any rock on the surface at all, only ice, most of it water ice that acts like rock because it is so hard and solid. So the ice is not only water ice, but it's also nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide. This close-up of the darker region shows impact craters with frost around the edges and lots of cracks. There are both old and young landscapes. These ice mountains are as tall as our Rockies. So what are these? Scientists don't have a clue. Maybe some kind of pits or holes created over time where snow evaporated. They're made of nitrogen ice, which is something we don't have here on Earth, so it's not something scientists can easily compare it to. So they will just keep on trying and examining more and trying to figure out what they are. Scientists are calling this feature on Pluto snake skin, strange ridges on the surface, perhaps methane ice that has formed ridges due to wind or even sublimation. They don't really know what's going on here either. These mountains, this scenic close-up shows mountains made of water ice sticking up thousands of feet above the surface. You can see hazes in the atmosphere. To me, it almost looks like it could be a picture of Earth. But the atmosphere there is very toxic with acetylene, ethylene, and hydrocarbons that you really don't want to be breathing. So here, New Horizons was saying goodbye to the Pluto system. You can see the haze layers, the ice mountains on the left, flatter areas on the right. It was quite a ride through the Pluto system, but it's not over yet. The team hopes to fly by another much smaller and much different Kuiper Belt object. They're targeting one for a flyby in late 2018 or early 2019. So stay tuned. New Horizons continues to chug along through the solar system. So Juno is a Jupiter orbiter that will be peering through the clouds to reveal the hidden secrets, revealing the formation and evolution about our solar system. It's the first solar-powered mission to go all the way out to Jupiter with 8 science instruments to conduct all kinds of gravity, magnetic, and atmospheric investigations, plus a citizen science camera called the JunoCam. It's a 5-year cruise out to Jupiter, and it will finally be arriving on the 4th of July this summer. There it will spend 16 months in 32 polar orbits, ending with a nicely termed deorbit into the surface in February of 2018. It'll be in an elliptical 14-day orbit swinging below the radiation belts, which are really, really strong and could do a lot of damage. So they're probably trying to spend as little time as possible in the radiation exposure areas. So Juno is a lot about searching for origins, not only of Jupiter, but of our entire solar system. And the 2 of the main things they'll be measuring to tell us this are the gravity science and the abundance of water. Also, another area of interest is, the enormous magnetic field, which generates a fabulous aurora. So you're going to be hearing more about Jupiter this afternoon and the Juno mission. So we have a mission that is supposed to be launching in September called OSIRIS-REx. It's NASA's first asteroid sample return. It will arrive at asteroid Bennu in 2019. It will spend a lot of time doing global mapping, measuring, and then we'll actually grab a sample soil. It's not going to land. You can see from the illustration at the top right, it's going to just hover over the surface and grab a sample of dirt and return it to Earth in 2023, where I think some of you students might be the ones who will be analyzing those samples. Their science objectives involve returning the sample, first and foremost, but globally mapping the asteroid, and then also doing a lot of close-in mapping to help them determine what the best sample site location will be. It's got a number of very complex science instruments to help give them all the data they'll need, along with a suite of 3 cameras. And something I think is very cool is one of the cameras will actually be recording that sample capture so that we can see what that looks like after it's happened. In the picture, you can see the very complex spacecraft being built. And finally, the touch and go sample acquisition mechanism, or the TAG-SAM, that was, as it was being installed onto the spacecraft, that is the arm that will capture the samples and grab them and bring them back to Earth. So InSight is a mission to place a geophysical lander on Mars to study its deep interior and increase our understanding of how all the rocky planets in the solar system, including Earth, formed and evolved. However, there's been a problem. Houston, we had a problem. InSight was supposed to launch in March. The spacecraft had left Lockheed Martin and gone to Vandenberg Air Force Base, but the main instrument, the seismometer, was not working properly. There was a leak that they were not able to seal. They continued testing. They finally said, we don't have enough time to continue trying to repair it, and continued to thoroughly test it to ensure success. So it was halted. It's now going to be redone. We have a new launch date scheduled for May of 2018 due to the launch windows. And as it turns out, JPL will redesign and build and test the seismometer. It had been done by the French space agency CNES, but it's coming back here to JPL, and we're hoping that the May of 2018 launch will go according to plan. And finally, Europa. Scientists and many people have been excited about the possibility of a mission to Europa for many years. It's a place where we have indications of an ocean of liquid water and perhaps conditions favorable to life. So we've finally gotten the green light on a mission to Europa. The science cameras, or the science instruments have been selected, the cameras and spectrometers to produce really high-resolution images, some ice-penetrating radar, a magnetometer, among others. So Bob Pappalardo, who's the project scientist, will be here this afternoon to talk to us about that. So it's really the first time we'll be hearing about that. There are many opportunities for people of all interests and abilities to participate in these missions. We need people to formulate the questions, build the machines, design the flight path, develop the software, program the computers, create the graphics and animations, tell the story to the public, and get it launched into space. So as you can see, there's a place for many, many different types of interests and professions. That picture is the New Horizons team. So finally, please visit our websites for more. We have a lot of educational things, a lot of great videos, and we would really like to think that today's students will be part of NASA's work tomorrow. So thank you very much, and I am going to, thank you.